Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and we are in San Francisco proper with a timeless musician and still contracting, Levitan Construction. Barry Levitan, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey Jake, great to see you again. Great to see you in person.
It's great to meet you, man. Just for cats that are going to see this way down the road, in essence, can you just talk about the Mime Troupe and what, truthfully, at the core, in the ideal situation, what they were all about, what the Mime Troupe was about?
Yeah, in the very beginning, it was the R.G. Davis Mime Troupe, and it was, they were like Second City, the committee. They're a little different. They did late at night in North Beach. They were doing improv and mime shows, and with the Mime Troupe, when it started, it was doing Commedia dell'arte. But the Commedia always had a political edge to it, all of it. If you know anything about Commedia, the Italian art form, it was always critical of status
Yeah,
quo.
Barthol told me about that.
Right.
Yeah, totally did.
Bruce. And then it evolved, and they did, and not far from here. We're at 27th and Balboa, and probably a mile away is Golden Gate Park, where they were doing free shows, and they weren't allowed to get a permit because of the profanity they were using, but they did it anyway. And there's a famous there's pictures and there's stories about the arrest of R.G. Davis.
Wow.
For obscenity, and a lot of the beat poets were there at the time supporting.
It's like 57 or?
This is 62, I think.
62?
Yeah.
So Ferlinghetti was there, and
Well, I don't know if he, but I know that you could look it up.
Yeah.
The famous San Francisco Mime Troupe bust, and they said that to the city, you can't regulate. It's our parks.
Right.
And so they went to court, and there was a long court case, and the result was the parks became open to the people, which brought out, when the music scene came, free shows in the parks, Hippie Hill. That all was because the Mime Troupe fought the battle.
Is there any legal people you want to give a shout out to? Because they won the bat. They
won the battle.
I mean, there's some sophisticated. Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't remember names, but
you're playing drums and doing skits. I mean, it's not.
Well, I joined later, but
sure.
But that was a famous story. And so what happened was the troupe was always political when they were, and it became more so when they collectivized in the late '60s, and Ronnie Davis left. Ronnie Davis and Sandy Archer were the two. They were pretty much running the show, and it collectivized. I joined shortly after. Now, got to remember, this is civil rights era is hot. The Black Panthers started in Oakland, right here.
Sure.
Vietnam War was just full blown ahead. Tet Offensive was in '68. And we're in an area of the country that, I've been here since 1969, and what a blessing that I found this place, musically, culturally.
Now, when did you actually get hip? Were you hip to them before you moved, the Mime Troupe, before you moved here? I mean, that whole bust was not on your radar.
No.
So can you, just talk about how you connected with the troupe?
How I connected was, I think I saw a show, and it must have been when I first moved here. I was up near Dolores Park in the Mission, which is right in the area that Santana used to play in that park. Yeah. There was another park that was opened up because of the Mime Troupe. And I was with some friends, and the Mime Troupe was doing, I think it was Dragon Lady's Revenge, which was a show about the CIA and the Opium Triangle,
Sure.
Smuggling, and it was a Terry and the Pirates kind of, very funny, and I was knocked out. I mean, I sat there in awe. I had never been into theater.
Yeah.
Theater was just, it was too much.
Too cosmopolitan or something.
It just didn't talk to me.
Right.
I was listening to blues and funk and soul music,
sure.
But this changed my mind, and just luckily, at the same time, I met up with a guy named Randy Craig, who was in the troupe, piano player, and Randy still is playing. He plays every night in Berkeley at the Marsh.
No relation to Bill Craig, is he?
No, I don't think
from
so.
Love, from okay, go ahead.
So Randy and we were all living right up where George Marsh was living, up in Bernal Hill. It was a tight little community and a lot of musicians up there. And I met up with a few people, and we formed a band. and actually there was a political band called Red Rock that was part of the mime troupe for a while. It was like, had horns, was funk.
Damn.
But it was almost, the people in it were like from the RCP, the Revolutionary Communist Party. I mean, the lyrics to this music, it's laughable. You know, we weren't gonna be influencing anybody, but it was fun. And Randy, and then I was in a couple bands with him, and somebody asked me to do a summer children's show in the Golden Gate Park, free show for kids. It wasn't part of the mime troupe, but it was mime troupe people. And I did that. It was a gas, and there was a guy, Joe Bellin, who lives probably half a mile from here, who was the funniest person I'd ever met. And somebody said, "You want to do the mime troupe show?" I said, "Joe's in it. I'll do it." And so I did, and had a blast. And they said, "Well, we're leaving on tour in the fall." And I said, "Great." And they said, and Joe said, "No, I don't tour." And I said, "Wait a minute, I joined this group for you." Well, 10 years later, it was still a joke. It was a joke. But that's how I joined. It came just through, I had met people. You know, the political community here was a small community.
Yeah, no, and it's
The
also
active
interesting. Now
music,
we know
yeah.
San Francisco is this bastion of liberalism, but before it was not. I mean,
Well, it's always, you know what had a strong influence here were the Longshoremen's Union, which
Right.
is one of the most progressive unions, still
Right,
is.
absolutely.
And that was the union in San Francisco. And a lot of the longshoremen was interesting, were poets, were writers, you know, and they had the Longshore gig. I mean, that union always had a big influence to me, you know, politically, and still does.
All right, I'm gonna throw out some names. We've been through this incredible extended pause and a time of inward looking during the pandemic. We've also lost a lot of incredible, beautiful people, obviously great musicians. I'm just gonna free associate, throw out some names. Jerry Granelli.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was part of that scene with George Marsh and
Fred Marshall, Noel
Right.
Jukes,
Yeah,
the
Jim-
LSD.
yeah,
I mean, the Light Sound Dimension.
Light Sound Dimension. You know, I had heard, and they used to play. We're close to the Haight right now. We're physically, you know, I don't know, half a mile
Wow.
from the Haight, and there were little clubs in the Haight that I used to hear people. Yeah, Jerry, that was a sad loss. You know, really. I mean, somehow the drummers in the Bay Area. I mean, Mike Clark, of course.
Eddie Marshall.
Gaylord Birch,
Oh,
who we lost.
just keep going.
He was under the radar. I mean, he was with the Pointer Sisters.
No,
and
it's funny because the video that you commented on, Jeffrey Cohen and I were talking about, because he worked very closely with Rubinson. He was hired by
Right,
Rubinson,
David
and so the first big, kind of big act they had was the Pointer Sisters.
Yeah.
And Gaylord was crushing that.
And-
But his vibe, his spirit was so strong.
Well, I never met him personally, but guys like George and David Rokeach and
Right.
Garibaldi, they all talk about him. You know, and what a great guy he was. But if you take just the number of drummers, I mean, that the known ones, you know, like Mike Clark, Garibaldi, Greg Rico,
Bill Vitt. I mean, it
just
goes on
go
and on and on and
you
on
know,
and
so-
on and on.
so
Steve Mitchell.
as a drummer who I became much more involved in the theater and I became an actor with them, but I came in as a drummer. It was a dream place. I mean, and you interviewed, and I'm glad, because I had mentioned him in the first interview, Al Coster.
Dude.
And I had mentioned that to you.
Dude, I need to reach out to him again.
Yeah.
The baddest cat.
Well, the
Granelli
nice-
was his teacher.
The nicest thing from that interview with
Yeah.
him is I hooked up with him again. I took 2 lessons from him in 1972, and I hit him up, you know, I think
I
through
love it.
Facebook.
Dude, I love it, man.
And-
Dude,
and-
you're such a I love that people connect through this. You're not.
Well,
it's not the first time it's happened.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and we've communicated, and you know, I hope to see him. Now, there was a case that, I mean, personally, I felt he was equal or above a lot of the very hip drummers.
Totally.
If you would have heard him I heard him with Loading Zone with his brother Tommy on piano, and Linda Tillery, Sweet Linda Divine singing.
Who's on bass? Paul Jackson?
I don't remember.
Dougie Roush. Anyway,
I
yeah.
don't remember. But he just knocked me out, and I said I got to grab a lesson. And I did a couple lessons over at the music store on Mission Street with him. But great drummer, but his life went someplace else. You know, he didn't stay with it. He could have been working, you know, any place he wanted to. but he was here. I mean, it just goes on, you know. And through the mime troupe, I hooked up with people like Bruce Barthol, the bass player for Country Joe, and
Muziki.
And Muziki Roberson, who I just saw. I'm going to see all these people at a party this weekend.
Please send my love to that dude. Muziki's like, I mean, that dude's he's a vessel. He's a vessel for the music coming through him.
He didn't talk about it, but he mentioned me, that he had a short gig with the Mills Brothers in Vegas, the famous Mills Brothers. And this has to go back to right after he got back from Vietnam, probably, you know, in his first couple of years. But I was just, Muziki does a session at his house. He has the Kickatorium, he calls it. He bought an old barn, and it's been converted to living area. It's not open to the public, but he does sessions with anybody who wants to on Wednesdays and during the day. People come over there, these monster musicians. Muziki's great. And Bruce, you know, I'll see all these people next weekend. There's a birthday party for one of the mine troopers, and we're all going to get together.
I just, I just want you to talk to people about, everyone has their own, people have talked about in some very verbose ways and some very short but very pithy ways about why they get off on my show. Why do you get off on the Jake Feinberg show?
Well, you pay me a lot to push it.
I got nothing.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. You're doing fine.
I'll tell you.
You're contracted.
Yeah, right.
You're getting a lot of money. You're not getting money from me.
I'm 77. That's how much money I get. I'm still working.
Well, you know, you're still in good shape. I mean, God bless, man.
Yeah.
Be grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the first time, I don't remember what interview it was, but you interviewed, and it was probably a drummer. That's probably, you know. And I said, boys, this is stories that should have been told a long time ago. The inner circle of musicians, these are common dialogues, but to bring it to the public, to bring it out there to the world, really, that says these are the people that make the music. You don't know their names, maybe, you know, because they're side men or side women, but this is it. I mean, and then your ability also to tie in the political scene with at the time, to bring out stories of how vicious the racism was when they were traveling, all these important stories. So it's just part of. I'll tell you why. It's a big part of American culture, and it needs to be told. You know, I mean, jazz has been called the American, the only, you know, American classical music. The African American influence, you can't even measure it. It's so phenomenal. And these are stories that just enrich the culture. You know, I mean, wherever the music scene goes, Jake, whether it goes just to more flash, you know,
lasers and shit,
whatever, you know, all that stuff. And as much as you know, it's hard. I don't call rap music. I call it poetry.
Sure.
And whether I like it or not, but music to me still has a form
and human element. Yeah.
Right.
You know, and some people would say, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. Barry Levitan, man, thank you so much for coming to see me, man. I love you, man, and you know, we got through this together, and we'll be together again.
God bless, man.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you later.